consideration.
So we gotta look at the whole budget number.
Maybe we'll discuss it more when we
Right.
get to that.
I'm making a
That's
list of
fine.
those.
That's fine.
We'll tie ourselves down to deciding.
Right, all right.
Okay,
Yeah,
what is
we-
next? Our opioid funding request, all rise.
You skipped.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry. Edward Wood Products, this is just for me to report on. Edward Wood Products is one through EDC that gets an incentive package each year. In fiscal year '23, they failed to report, they failed to make their progress report that would get their incentive payment. And so now they've come back and said, we didn't do it, and we want our incentive payment.
For 2023?
Yes.
They want
for
one for
fiscal year
2023 and this year now, right?
So what we proposed, because we told them we can't just pay that out this year's and last year's going into next year. So we're proposing to give them half of that now, square away the other half in fiscal year '26.
How much is half of that now?
It is $382,671.
That was a
No, I'm
deadline?
sorry, that's the whole, half of $382,671.
190,000.
So,
I mean,
and of course Beth and I talked about, can
what
we
is
do
our
that?
obligation to do that if they didn't report it
The-
3 years ago?
It's not our obligation contractually, and of course, we run that by Ed Johnson again, but those contracts read, it is the company's responsibility to report to us, not our responsibility to go out and check their progress.
I guess my question would be, is there a time frame? I know it's an incentive.
For the fiscal year before the
For the
end of that
fiscal year,
fiscal
they
year.
didn't meet that fiscal
Because
year.
we need to pay it out of that fiscal year, that's how we
Right.
budgeted it.
Right.
So,
I think that's a good Ed question, and,
Well, you said you
Well-
had looked at it, right?
yeah, I mean, what's in the contract's within the contract. I think we have to decide, do we wanna keep a good faith effort and pay this out because they did meet their incentive requirements? Of course, Beth has weighed in on this and how would we do that? And that's how we came up with the half this year, half next year.
I guess,
Just on the delinquent part, their full part would still be paid in full.
Yes, keeping them current would still be like.
Right, we
normal,
would
so
just be doing that year that they missed.
It would be.
well,
I'd say
they,
a reporting
They-
is a small request.
they missed it.
I'm,
So
I'll leave that up
I'm
to
with the
y'all.
pleasure of the board, but
They missed the deadline.
they did miss the deadline.
what happened if we missed the deadline?
Right.
Well, in 2024, they made the deadline, right?
But they
And in
didn't bring up-
2025, they're
They're
prepared to submit.
prepared to make the deadline. I can't say how.
I guess you can propose half, y'all. I guess you can propose half this year, maybe the other half next year.
Well, it ain't our fault, is it?
Really, truly, they got a deadline. Because what if everybody would give a thing to,
Not our
and we have
fault.
a bad year as far as revenue?
I agree. Just depends on how, and of course, this has some effect on the EDC as well, because this all, comes under the umbrella of they came, they have an incentives agreement, et cetera.
I tell you, goodwill is worth a lot, but I mean, at the same time, we've gotta be able to, this makes our budget process tougher now. We have an extraordinary expense that should have been addressed in the
Right.
correct year,
Well, in theory, it was, because we would have budgeted that year for it. So at the end of the day, it was an overage in that year's budget,
I mean,
or an underage.
Or was it
However
in
you
the
wanna look
budget?
at it.
If they didn't submit for it, would
No,
they?
we budget, like, we are forecasting now for fiscal year '26,
Right.
because if they meet, we know what incentives we're gonna pay out,
But you would have thought the EDC would have reached out,
Well-
because they're the ones who hold the agreement with the employer.
well, the EDC could have assumed that they didn't meet the target.
Yeah,
I mean-
exactly.
And that's why they didn't report.
Right.
And we have.
Because we do
we
have
have
companies that
incentives.
don't meet the incentive agreements, and they don't get,
And I think that has to be the assumption when you don't file.
And we have ones out there that don't file because they haven't met.
they
it.
don't
Yeah.
keep the job, so.
I don't know, this is,
$300,000.
We demand accountability, I mean, we demand accountability in a lot of situations, and
Well, we're setting a precedent here. So when the next one doesn't file and then come back 2 years later, what do we do? You know, and.
or
so-
5 years later.
Or 5 years later. The precedence is gonna be, you did it for them.
And how do we prove they met the target at this point?
Well, now they realize they didn't report, so they've turned it in.
That's what I'm
So you
saying.
reconstruct records and,
Well, everybody not gonna know each individual situation,
Right.
so, you know, the other company, I know that they do, you know, so
Oh,
you can't
wow.
base it like that.
these incentives are so big that they're a hard thing to forget.
Yeah, that's,
They really are, like even Bailey's is very sizable, just for 35 employees.
Right. I mean, do we give them half?
you talking about half and half?
Yeah, half and half.
And do that over 2 years.
Well, you know, agreement is agreement, but they also have to report, you know.
There's gotta be some kind of penalty.
Right, right. You lose half if you don't report, or, I mean,
And maybe that's the precedent you set. Maybe going into the next incentive agreements, our council starts to build those in.
You don't want a
Should
chance
we-
losing though. You don't want a chance losing.
Mm-hmm.
You talking about losing Edwards?
You losing
Yeah,
Elm.
yeah.
Well, and
You know,
that's kind
Right.
of where I thought,
right.
do you just?
You
go
pay
through
them,
good
just tell them we
faith?
didn't budget, you get half this year, half next year.
Yeah, they're not gonna leave the county.
Well, that's what we
over.
planned on, because we knew we couldn't just do it all this
No,
year.
no, that
We don't wanna do it all
would-
next year.
We're revisiting it now.
You know what I mean? And with the EDC too, that's part of the incentive to get, you know, companies to come here. You tell them we'll give you, you know, we'll give you a break, but this is on them, not us.
It is.
They didn't report, so they got to bear some of the blame for this.
They ought not to complain on what we already gave them and what we've already done for them.
That's opening up another can of worms.
Right. So
So your motion is,
my motion is to give them half this year.
what, about half and half, or?
Yeah, half of the half, my fault, half of the half. And we
Okay,
go back to try to finish with the other portion next year.
The
so
other half
then you
and
could
a
talk
half?
about a quarter this year.
Quarter this year and a
3/4
quarter
next
next year, not 50%, not half. Quarter, a half of the half.
So you don't wanna give them their full at all. You wanna half it to begin with, and then half that into this year and next year.
No, just quarter it,
Yeah,
this year, next year.
get a quarter.
Then that's half.
It is in total.
So what you're saying is, you don't want them to get
But that'll be half in
382.
total.
You
You're
want them
talking,
to get half of 382, period.
no,
No?
Yeah, in essence,
yes, yes.
So if you're saying half of the 382, we can pay that out this year.
75.
And be done with it.
So that, of the 180, however much it is,
Whatever it
190,
is.
190,
Yeah, 190.
so half of that, 85, no, 90, whatever. That math bug is kicking in again.
It's all right.
90 grand this year, 90 grand next year.
Okay. So
So,
my response is going to be, basically, they're getting penalized 50% of their incentive, right?
Yep.
And we're gonna pay half of the 50% now, and half of the 50%
There
in
you go.
fiscal year 26.
there you go.
And I'll run that by Bill Floyd.
And
Make
if
sure.
he thinks different, then.
But you know, the other thing is, what does the contract say? I mean,
Well, that's my point.
The
I'm
contract
pretty
makes-
sure the contract says you gotta have it in.
I'll tell you, we ought to just follow the letter of the contract, not create some
Then
special
they get nothing.
thing. I mean, in your personal life, if you sign a
I'm
contract, you're
trying
held
to
to the
be, hell,
contract.
I said that from the start.
All right, well, wait just a minute, because we got a motion on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to deal with that before we get into the discussion. Do we have a second for that motion? Hearing no second, then that motion will fail, and then we can go back into the discussion of it. So,
Make a motion,
I agree
I
with
think
Ed.
we
think
should,
we
we
need
should
to follow the
behave
contract.
consistent with the contract.
It's
I
done
agree.
that way in everyday life.
It
I
is,
mean,
I just think we ought to behave
And I'm
that
not trying to
way.
be a hard tail or anything like that. But sometime or another, people have to be held accountable. And, you know, I don't mind helping, I'll give anybody the shirt off my back. But, you know, this is 2 years ago.
Right.
Why didn't they bring it up last year? They can't say they didn't know it. You know what I'm
Not
saying?
just that, but you open the door for everybody.
Exactly.
So my motion would be that we follow the terms of the incentive contract as written. So if they had 60 days to, you know, do it late and they miss the 60-day window, then they get 0. If there is a process for them to come back and appeal it beyond that, then we follow that process. But let's follow the contract.
I will second that. Is that a motion?
Yep, that's a
I'll
motion.
second that
All
motion.
right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that makes up $190,000 of your budget.
Potentially.
This year.
We're getting there. We ain't got the
That's
budget
right.
yet. We haven't been. Should say that out loud because people will line up.
You're on.
All right,
You know,
we
you
can
should
come on
inform
record.
the chair of the EDC just to
I'll-
make sure
I'll-
that
I'll have this on the agenda.
there should be a conversation with Edwards.
All right, moving on, opioid funding request. Y'all need a break for anybody? If not, we'll move on, but,
Miss Lisa Freeman is
That's me.
here
oh, you're gonna talk
from
now?
the Public Defender's Office. So I'll let her.
With my
take it away.
coworkers. I'm up here with people. So first of all, thank you for having us. I'm good. No, you're part of this. Judge Wilson was supposed to be here today. She has a family medical emergency, so she sent me in her place. So by way of explanation, some of you last year heard our presentation about Family Treatment Court. If you're not familiar with that, let me explain everybody's roles and where we are. So as Ms. April said, I'm an assistant public defender. I'm the senior assistant public defender here. This is the only county where we operate this court. We plan to go to Richmond and Anson, which are our district, but we started here. Part of our budget last year included hiring Mr. Brooks here. I'm gonna let him explain his job, and Ms. Chavis. So you want to briefly see what you do?
Yes, so my name is Travis Brooks. I am the Family Treatment Court Coordinator for Scotland County. I'm practically a probation officer case manager for the clients in the program. I enrolled them in treatment programs and track their progress while in the treatment programs, whether it be inpatient and or outpatient. We do host our Family Treatment Court bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks. Before court, we have an hour staffing, and then we go straight into our court session where the participants are in the court and they speak to the senior public defender, myself, and the judge to explain their progress. And most times we do have the treatment provider in court with us to comment on that participant's progress while in their program.
Ms. Chavis?
Oh, so I'm Naheedi Chavis. I am the opioid outreach social worker. So basically, I keep up with those in the community who have opioid addiction. So basically, anyone kind of off the street, I would say, that wants to come in, they have to live in Scotland County, be over 18, and have like a current opioid addiction. And I just keep up with them doing casework and try to get them connected with, treatment providers here in Scotland County.
So by way of further explanation, we have a DSS court. It's called Abuse, Neglect, and Dependency. That runs parallel to this program. Ms. Deans, we're really familiar with that. We have taken sort of the worst of those parents who are severely addicted, have lost their children, and we come to this court, which is every 2 weeks, as Mr. Brooks said. We have people we place in recovery, we place them in treatment, we provide transportation. The good thing about this program is the community has started to get involved. We have 3 or 4 providers that come to court. They assist with housing, transportation, some of the treatment, as far as Charlotte, Rockingham, the coast, there's different programs. So when we did the budget last year, we included Mr. Brooks' salary. I don't know if they have that budget. Did you get them last year's?
I have that up there.
So it's up there on, there you go. Well, no,
The
first
one that
slide.
says recovery court in the
That
middle.
one?
No, right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, part of what I'm here for today is to give you an update as to our participants and our progress in the community. Secondly, to see where we're headed and seeking some guidance. So part of last year's budget included training conferences, NADCP, which stands for National Association of Drug Court Participants. We are that, but in the family court sense. So all of these conferences taken that name and that role, and that's what they do. We currently have 4 participants, and we have 2 that are signed up.
4, 5, 6, yes.
Yes. Our goal is to get 10 to 15 working with this, and again, taking them out of DSS court, making their recovery process better, making their lines better as far as recovery and reunification. So DSS can last for 2 to 3 years. We're trying to get these things down to 12 months or so with intensive treatment, intensive counseling, intensive court. Part of court is the judge's role, my role, Mr. Brooks's role, and any treatment provider. So I'm seeking guidance on how to apply for, which we did through Ms. April, to go to training, which is actually at the end of May, so we're kind of on a time crunch. We have this budget, have not used part of it yet. We used part from Mr. Brooks' salary, but we're seeking guidance on how to get the training approval, the budgetary means. So Ms. April suggested we come to you guys. Now this line over here, this community outreach says in county through, is that county commissioners?
I can't read that.
I can't even, I
Somebody
think it
can-
said county commissioners.
Dorothy, can you increase, blow that
No.
up on the
It's
screen?
where Erica put her.
So this
right here.
budget, so this budget is set up the way NCACC requires it to be set up. So we can't change the line items.
Right.
We can only plug things in that the program wants to do in a way that kind of makes sense in here.
So the training is sort of on the table now to get disbursement. It's already in our budget. We just don't know how to get that. So Ms. April said to come here to this meeting.
I think, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What
I-
type of training?
It's called All Rise. I think y'all got a link through Ms. Dorothy. Did anybody get that link? The agenda consists of lots of tracks, the judge track, the attorney track, the court counselor track, and any other resource providers to come. We went last year to California. The All Rise Conference paid for that last year because we were new. This year they're only paying for you to go, right?
Correct.
To go?
Back to California?
No, it's Florida. It's
Orlando.
Orlando. It is a national training. Here's what happens at these trainings, because I've been doing this 27 years. And part of these conferences are, well, here's what we do in Washington, New York, whatever. DSS currently supervises visitation for parents. When we went to the training last year, they said, you need funding for other people to supervise. So DSS is limited to time and employees. Obviously, they're not open on weekends. So they suggested, hey, have some different visiting resources, different people. Another line item in here was peer support. That was new to me. That means people who've gone through the program can now be paid to help the other participants to learn, hey, here's what I did, and let me help you keep on track, let me support you. I didn't know that that could be a position that's paid for. She's nodding her head. That's new. It's a very good concept. So these conferences are track related. They have different tracks for different participants, and we all get to learn what we're supposed to do. My role is meeting with parents, getting releases signed, explaining the legal consequences of what they're doing. Additionally, our court is confidential and doesn't transpose over to A&D court. So everything we do, they have free reign. So it's more casual. It's more you are the person here. They can't go and tell DSS, they being the people inside, whether they're doing this right or not this right. It's very much internalized, very helpful. Our participants really relate to that. They're very thankful that they're looked at as not a court case, but a participant. We call them participants. You know their children, their family, we know all about them. DSS court, more formal, more judicial, more, here's what we're doing, we have time limits and limited time to get DSS's recommendation. DSS is not involved in the court process in this court, and that helps our participants tremendously.
I do want to add, our program is only one of 2 in the nation. Ours and one in upstate New York. Again, we have a bi-weekly court session. Our next is May 9th, and we invite you all to come out just to see the participants and see how our court is run.
I think
Okay.
Robeson County is running it.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
going,
Robinson
That's
County
where
has
we
a
learned it from.
drug treatment court. Ours is opioid treatment.
any other county in, nobody else in North
Not
Carolina?
specific to opioid
Not
treatment,
opioid.
but they treat parent courts, and there's veterans courts, there's adult courts, there's criminal courts. Our judges are trying to get the criminal side of this into court, where people can address behaviors, addictions as part of criminal, which would be my forte also. But right now, he's right, opioid-wise, our participants have to qualify by having an opioid addiction.
I thought that the criminal side was coming because on the
It is.
initial stage, Judge Rule was in a part of this.
I've been trained also. Our head judge, Judge Futrell, has to get on board with that. We have another judge, Judge Layton, she's on board. They're going through some training to get it up and running. Yes, sir. It's good that they picked Scotland, because we are Scotland, Richmond, Anson. So I am surprised that Scotland got this, but we are really motivated. The DSS people, us, have been really working on this. Our first session was February 1st of this year, so it took that long to get up and running. But now we need the additional training. We just need guidance on how to do that with the budget we have, as well as ask for a budget for next year, because we plan to have 10 to 15 participants.
Gotcha.
So
So,
you,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
you mentioned that, if I heard you right, that people from other counties are coming in and participating in this?
Not participants, just the resource providers. They're in Charlotte and different places, and they have housing. We're really, as you know, struggling with housing.
So these are just partners, right?
They are the resource providers to provide care for our participants, yes, sir.
But participants themselves
Here.
are only from Scotland?
Yes, sir.
So Richmond and Anson, have they gotten off the floor with this thing yet?
The same judge
Richmond?
wants to run it, and they're, go ahead.
Yeah, Judge Layton, I've been in contact with her. They want to do this same program in Richmond,
Well,
in Anson.
The reason I ask that question is because shouldn't you be coordinating with Richmond and Anson on trying to build this? what
The
it should look
judges
like?
that be are doing that. They have to go through judges, and we all are in support of it. The judges are talking among themselves to get it running. Yes, sir. And if Judge Wilson was here,
I
she'd
didn't
tell
wanna,
you.
I didn't wanna be where you doing all the legwork in
We
the
are.
other two counties. Well,
We are to get it up and running so that it can make a smooth transition to that, because the same judges will run it everywhere.
I got you.
But,
So what we're here today for is a request to fund from the opioid money
Yes.
to do the conference or the training in Florida.
it's already in our budget. We just didn't know how to approach it. Permit April, we had to come here to.
Well, and because our opioid collaborative isn't meeting this month, they're meeting next month.
Yeah, but don't
And
you
it's a large request.
How much is
It's,
the table?
For the Florida.
For the three,
It's 3 people
it's a
going.
lot.
when I
and-
budgeted, I did 6. I didn't do the 3, so it should be around.
I have the numbers, that
Okay.
Judge Wilson sent me.
And
And
how
so-
many people went to California?
Last year? Oh, gosh. 1, 2, 3, 4. We had a Guardian ad litem go.
What
The
did
Guardian
that
one was
cost?
fun. That was through All Right, so I don't know, but probably a lot more expensive to the travel.
I know that, I'm just
Yes,
wondering what it
sir.
cost.
I didn't handle that, but
If it helps, I assume the registration would have been the same last year, it's about between $800 and $900 a person, just to
Correct.
register for the conference. And then, of course, like, Ms. Freeman said,
Travel
we
a
had
little
the
bit
travel,
more.
right.
meal.
But he priced that already and for
Yeah, I
5,
have
and now it's down to 3. Do you have the numbers by chance?
Mhm,
Okay.
Judge Wilson said.
It's in our budget, and it said 20, and of course, it's not that much at all, but
I think
don't
I
have it.
asked him to come here because the collaborative does not meet this month, and I was not comfortable, spending that much money
How much- how
on a
much-
Well, we
training.
still-
We don't
what's
spend that
the
on
amount?
county
Right.
staff.
What's the amount for 3 people?
It's gonna be around $2,100 a person.
So about
And,
6
and
grand.
our,
So this would not be new,
no,
and our
sir.
DSS director has also now asked that more people go.
Oh,
Well, is it gonna, do we need to send extra? Or can we come back and train? Can the 3 that go come back and train?
that would be my position, the DSS, is anybody else here other
I
than
mean,
Sheavis? She works with DSS, he is sort of a joint DSS and court,
Yes.
and I'm court system, so I can't speak that to DSS's needs.
I mean,
I wasn't aware they wanted to send
We
somebody.
get our guidance for opioid programs from your association, NCACC in Raleigh. That's where we get our guidance. That's how they tell us how to spend the funds, how to run the programs. They approve our programs, and so that's where our guidance comes from, when we're setting the budgets up. And when we have questions, that's who they go to, Raleigh. They had their conference in March, their opioid conference in March.
but my question goes back to, it's already in what we budgeted
Yes, sir.
and approved on the resolution.
Sure. Well, there's a huge line for training for some reason.
I reckon so, Florida and
Let's
California.
see.
Last year's more members, I think,
Well,
added
it's
up
for
to 20.
training and conferences, because when we set this up, we were told that we had to go to an AOC training. Well, I haven't seen an AOC training since this was set up
Now, I
last year
remember
or
talking
this
about
year.
that training.
And so we used All Rise in California for their training.
They are the one in the nation that
And
is
so
training for youth
now it's
courts.
rolled over
We
to
do know
this year.
that.
So next year, you know, if
What do y'all need training on?
Well, you have to have sanctions for people who don't comply in court. We need to know what possible, some judges want to actually use a criminal sanction for noncompliance, and this is sort of a civil court, so there's a lot of that's my legal training is what to do. You have incentives on the other scale of that of what to do when people do successfully comply. You have resource providers, what kind of treatment people need for opioid addictions, the levels of that, the experts involved, the medications involved, what is appropriate. When a client comes to court and says, I'm on Suboxone, you sort of need to know what that means and how much that should be. I mean, we're not professionals, but the training says if they're on this kind of scale, this is what they should be doing. The training say, here's how many months it takes. How many months do you think they need a clean urine test to have a child back? Do y'all have a, what do you think? Those are very, very, very questions that across the nation, they say, well, we've taken on this substance, they need 4 clean tests, they need 2. I mean, you hear ideas of what other courts are doing to decide what to do with our participants, to reward, to punish, to progress, and to get them through this treatment. We don't have an answer, and there shouldn't be a blanket statement of every court being the same. I think it's very individualized.
I'm just going back to, and if it's gonna be $6,000 or whatever, but if we've already got it budgeted.
But they say they were gonna add some more people.
Right, yeah,
Well, I wouldn't wanna add, I wouldn't
So-
wanna.
That's news to me and news to them.
Add me.
The Raleigh conference, was that the same as the Florida
No,
conference?
sir.
Well, and that's what I was gonna ask, is there
Right.
a place closer you can go train?
But we love that, but
I actually did.
Yes.
AOC had a conference, the beginning of May, it was in Winston-Salem. I went specifically when they covered the drug treatment court and opioid settlement funds. So I did go to that free conference when they hosted it in Winston-Salem. Me and Ms. Chavis went to that.
here towards what they do, which is coordination and seeking out resources, they've got to do a lot of
It's not the
community
same,
support.
not the same thing.
I guess just, you know, from my, and I'm just gonna vocalize another perspective, I think the optics is kind of what we're thinking about as well, right? So when you start expending these opioid monies, there's probably some tension between how much actually goes to client and client services and how much goes to overhead.
We don't have a
So
lot of overhead.
we're
We-
just trying to be sensitive to that.
Yes, sir.
And I think right-sizing the group and making sure it's functional, like Duke said, you know, coming back and training people and getting the best value out of this.
Absolutely. Well, we want to get some grants. We do want to reach out to NCP to their program. We want some interns. So the expansion of what we're doing in training will result after we have the national training to kind of trickle down. We are operating on this small staff because we're just up and running as of February. Most of these courts have a data collector that collects all the different numbers and things and justifications for different types of treatment. The main problem in these courts is finding the resource providers to treat and to transport and to house these people. So a lot of their work is reaching out to do that. That's an important part.
Well, I called Mr. Sampson last month, a couple weeks back. The issue we were having recently of folks not having Narcan. They're admitting to overdosing a couple times a week. And, you know, the reason I was saying, are you coming back training? Because we do have local providers.
We
Here.
do.
With Suboxone,
Yes.
we have local providers here that, you know, that know this environment and this population of people. So that was my concern. Are you coming back training folks? I know you wanna add some
that's
more.
supposed to be a part of this program,
It is.
this money
It
budgeted
is.
for that.
We need, the providers come to court, we need, like he said, staffing before. A lot of the participants want the whole package and need the whole package from transportation, housing, treatment, everything. And they're without their children, so they have the time and ability. So he's in charge of gathering who can come. We've had resource providers at every court session so far.
Part of also, I think, because they're talking about the program so much, one thing that we have to do this time of year, we have to track data on this program. And we have to report it back to NCAC so they can see what we are doing and what we are spending, and the impact it is having.
The client.
And so,
Right.
those data factors were shared at the beginning of the year, and now it's the time of year we're gonna have to report back. Because in July, you've got to do a new resolution on what you're gonna fund.
Right.
Two things, we're gonna do a community newsletter, of course, we have to take out the person's name and redact it, to give you, as a board, sort of updates on the participants, if that would be helpful. Secondly, I can tell you, we kind of had the worst of the worst. He just transported someone up to Charlotte. She was on fentanyl and she was 2 times a day, every other day. She's this big around.
Fentanyl and meth at the same time.
Right.
But she came to court every time. So the judge was scared she'd overdose and said, oh, we're just glad you're here. But we're able to carve out space, time, and energy towards that person who otherwise in the court system would be a number, a time of an attorney, whatever, much different.
So,
Well, oh, sorry.
no, I wanna, going back to that Narcan, are there any plans to include vending machines?
Not in our
Okay.
program,
So,
but we.
I'm
Now,
sorry.
their program is
I-
required to put it in the hands of their clients and
Exactly.
train them.
That-
Ours is
And
care
that's a data
recovery
measure
court.
that they're gonna have to meet, and we're gonna have to
The
report on
providers.
them in the next month.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And